Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to today's agenda. It's going to be quite hard-hitting, and some of the accounts you may find quite distressing, but this is the reality of torture and abuse in the prisons in Morocco. Joining us to talk about this is Clara Gutteridge, a researcher from the charity Reprieve, and Clara has quite a bizarre brief. You're an expert on kidnap, rendition, torture, and other sorts of things that Reprieve is investigating.
Yeah, it started because we represent 36 people in Guantanamo Bay. Our legal director is Clive Stafford Smith, and when he went to Guantanamo to finally meet with some of the prisoners, found that really most of them had been subject to rendition and torture in other locations before they got taken.
So this is a very murky world that you've been investigating.
Yes.
We'll talk about that in a minute, but someone who can give us a first-hand account of the brutality and the reality of what's happening in Morocco's prisons is Abdel-Latif Maroun. And your case first came to our attention, Abdel-Latif, when your wife came into this studio and urged agenda viewers to do what they could to try and help get you released from prison. And she told us some harrowing details, because at one stage she was led to believe that you were actually killed in a car accident, and I remember Layla was in tears as she told us how she was taken into a room and told to identify a body, which happily for her turned out not to be you, but obviously a tragedy for somebody else.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Morocco has been known to be a brutal country for torturing detainees, especially after the events of the 16th of May 2003. Mm-hmm. And they apply all sorts of torture, body torture, physical, mental, all sorts of torture.
Well, again, we'll come back to you in more detail. Then we have Farhad Ansari from the Islamic Human Rights Commission. There were actually bouquets for the IHRC earlier today from the family of a young man who was reprieved from death row in Pakistan, and he's on his way home.
Yeah, it's rare you get positive news in the IHRC, but the last 2 days have been fantastic. A lot of pressure is put over the last 6-7 months with Amnesty, Reprieve, and Fair Trials Abroad, and other NGOs, and thank God, alhamdulillah, we've got Mirza hopefully back on a plane today to be rejoined with his family.
Mm-hmm. So that's good news coming out of Pakistan, and to all the agenda viewers who took part in email pressure, you know, well done. And it is great news. But of course, you're not here today to talk about that particular injustice or saving people from death row. You're also here to talk about the case of a Moroccan in this country who has been held without trial, without charge.
Yes, it's Farid Hilali. He's a Moroccan who's due to be extradited to Spain under the European extradition warrant, and is brought into actually fast-track extraditions, and he'd be the first person to be sent on it. Now, Farid's been linked to 9/11, even though the 9/11 Commission cleared him of it. And he was previously renditioned and tortured in the Emirates, and he was tortured in Spain as well. So obviously he's fighting that extradition. And also to talk about the Al-Adl wal-Ihsan party in Morocco and the 12 Moroccan students who were imprisoned 15 years ago because of their beliefs.
And they're still in prison now?
They're still in prison. We've just opened up a new campaign for them, so we'll talk about that.
Right, okay. And last but not least is Brother Hamid, who's come to the studio today, and he's asked for anonymity, not for himself, but for the protection of his family who are still living in Morocco. And he genuinely fears for their safety if his identity, full identity, is revealed on this program. And he will be talking to us particularly about the plight of the Moroccan prisoners and the conditions that they're living in. So assalamu alaikum to you, brother.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Clara, if I can open up with you first. When you were assigned reprieve researcher to check out renditions, torture, kidnap, how did you go about it?
Well, in the case of Morocco, what happened was we were researching the case of Binyam Mohammed, who is one of the British residents in Guantanamo Bay. He was taken there in 2004, and it came out through his interviews, his unclassified statements to Clive Stafford Smith, that he'd been arrested in Pakistan in 2002, and in the period between his initial arrest and turning up in Guantanamo in September 2004, he had been subject to extraordinary rendition and held in numerous secret locations, one of which was three of those places are actually in Morocco. And Binyam's tale it's the worst case of torture that we know of, and that torture, he says, occurred in Morocco. He was there for 18 months, where he was, among other things, had his genitals slashed with razor blades every day. Every day for 18 months.
Now, I know that he wants us to discuss this in detail on this show, but he also told Clive Stafford Smith details of other things that had happened to him that he couldn't bear to discuss and he didn't want made public. And one can only imagine that if he's prepared for us to discuss how his genitals were sliced on a daily basis, you know, I just can't imagine what it is that he is still hiding.
Yeah, exactly. So this is not the worst that happened to Binyam, but this is the worst that he will allow us to speak about. So when investigating Binyam's case and trying to work out, you know, perhaps where he'd been held in Morocco, and to try and identify who did these things to him, we found that we think that he was held in a place called Tamara, which is a fairly well-known detention centre in Morocco that we found out a lot of people had been held in, including Abdul Latif next to me. So really, just through the case of one person in Guantanamo Bay, suddenly more and more cases start appearing of people who, you know, in one way are less lucky, if you could say it like that, because some of these people are still in Morocco. They don't have any access to a lawyer. They're Moroccan citizens. They don't have any connection to the UK. So really, there's nobody to speak out for them.
What did the Americans want from Binyam? What were they hoping that he would tell them?
So when Binyam was arrested in Pakistan in April 2002, he was held in Pakistan for 3 months. He wasn't interrogated at all by the Pakistanis who he was being held by. He was interrogated by the Americans and the British. And Jack Straw actually admitted that about 6 months ago, admitted that Binyam had been visited by the British there as well. He was then taken to Morocco for 18 months and tortured, but whilst he was in Pakistan, there were actually news reports released by the Americans saying that they had found an accomplice of Jose Padilla, who was the man who was going to be tried in the United States for the alleged dirty bomb plots, and he never actually went on trial in the end for that. So when Binyam was in Morocco and being tortured on a daily basis, what he was being asked to confess to was having been one of the accomplices of Jose Padilla in this dirty bomb plot.
And what is Binyam's nationality?
He's an Ethiopian national but British resident.
Mm-hmm. And what was he working as in Britain?
He was working in a mosque. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Cleaning.
Abdul Latif, you have been held in the same prison where Binyam was. Did you ever meet him?
No.
When you hear the detail of the torture that he was subjected to, are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised, to be honest with you, because the sheer, horror of the torture in that place is beyond any imagination.
He was tortured on behalf of the Americans, and it appears British intelligence were aware of what was happening to Binyam in Morocco. What were your circumstances? Why were you arrested?
I mean, I've been kidnapped on the 20th of June 2003, and I've been held in Tamara as well, in the detention where Binyam was, and I've faced all type of torture too.
Do you want to tell us in any detail about it?
I don't want to go into any details.
No, that's fine. We had your wife Layla in the studio a couple of times trying to make sense of your kidnapper. She described it as well, and arrest. How long were you held in Morocco for?
Well, I was kidnapped for 45 days. Then I was passed to this criminal court in Rabat, which has been specializing in this anti-war, anti-terror legislation.
And what were you accused of, or what were they wanting you to confess?
Did they ask you a question about having prayed with a certain scholar or sheikh in a mosque so-and-so, or you know the person so-and-so? This type of... I mean, there is no crime or real accusation, to be honest with you.
Who were they doing it for? Were they doing it for themselves or for the Americans, or...?
I think they are doing it for the Americans and for themselves. Because we used to hear rumors going that because of the war in Iraq, they wanted to arrest all the people who could possibly go and fight in Iraq from Morocco.
Right. Farhad, I know that the Islamic Human Rights Commission, you're a global charity, and that you've been investigating prisoner abuse in Morocco for some time now. What sort of conditions are people being held in over there?
I mean, I think it's all been said already. The torture in Morocco is one of the most brutal places you can be tortured. It's given a real image as a tourist destination and as a very, cosmopolitan place where a lot of Europeans go for holiday. And another place like that is Tunisia. But the treatment and the conditions of those prisons is absolutely horrible. There's a rat, in fact, I mean, the brothers can probably tell you personal testimony, but they're beaten, they're psychologically tormented. Tapes are played basically of how, women screaming, and they're meant to believe that maybe that's their wife or daughter being raped. And you have all this sort of torture on a much larger scale happening on a daily basis. Now, what's interesting is that in some background to these 12 students who were arrested, who were accused of being members of the Adl wal Ihsan, the Justice and Spirituality movement, since 1975, when their leader, Abdus Salam Yassin, he spoke out against the King of Morocco, and he said to return to Islam and become a just ruler. He wrote a letter to him, and because of that letter he was imprisoned until the year 2000. But in that time, any members of the basically Adl wal Ihsan were just rounded up, arrested and tortured. And even the most secular human rights groups, international organizations, have stated that this is a non-violent group. It's a group which calls for coming back to Islam and working at the grassroots level. It's completely non-violent, yet all its members are rounded up. And in 1991, when it was becoming more popular on campus in universities to either join the lefty organizations or the Islamic groups, and so many people were joining the Adl wal Ihsan, and they cracked down, they wouldn't allow them into libraries. This was completely state implemented, they wouldn't allow them into restaurants. These 12 students who we're sort of campaigning for now, they were actually accused of the murder of another student from a different group. Now the trial took place in secret, there was torture evidence used, confessions were tortured out of them. It was ridiculous, some of the evidence. For example, on one of them, their shirts, they found blood, and they claimed that this was the blood of the victim. And this brother said, that's actually my blood when the police cracked my skull when they arrested me. And the lawyer basically said, let's send this to get a DNA sample. It's a simple test to find out whose blood it belongs to. But the court denied that. They wouldn't allow them any witnesses. So the case was a clear miscarriage of justice. It was completely unfair. But these 12 students have been in jail for 15 years now. And they're due to be released in another 5 years. But we were approached earlier this year to begin a campaign for them. So we've started focusing on this issue. Because it goes wider than the prisoners. This crackdown on the Awlad al-Rasan has resulted in issues such as the Moroccan Minister for Education calling for a removal of, and they have removed it, pictures of women and children in hijab from school textbooks, because they say this is symbolic of the rise of extremism. The national airlines recently banned the office staff from praying, because they said the staff members are abusing their prayer breaks, taking too long. And as basically we were saying, if people are abusing their lunch breaks, are you going to ban lunch completely?
So this is religious persecution of Muslims in a Muslim country?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's this attempt to portray Morocco as, being a more secular, being more, fighting the rise of extremism, as they put it, which is really people are turning to the religion completely. I mean, wearing hijabs, going to the mosques. These have become criminalized and become criminal activity.
If I move over to you, Hamid, your family is still living in Morocco, which is why you don't want to be identified, because you're fearful that there could be repercussions on your family. You brought in some posters that you want us to look at, and I don't know if our cameraman can focus in on these posters, but if you can tell us about each one as they come up on the screen. To your left, these people here.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As we know that been a lot of people killed in jail since 2003, and the one in the middle is Sheikh Mohammed Bounit al-Marrakeshi. He been killed as a result of beating and torture. And the next brother is Zarli Saleh, another brother who been killed just because he resist the arrest. And like we heard 2-3 days ago, another brother or Sheikh Zakaria Milodi, he been killed as well in jail of Qanaitra.
And this one?
This is some brother. This is some brothers from jail, the one who been handed a heavy sentence. They're trying to, they were striking, hunger strike, and they said they gonna strike till death or they review their cases. And this is one of the mothers of the detainees. She was protesting, and the police come and they beat her up.
This is a sister?
Yes. That's what they do to women. They even rape them. These people, they don't stop to nothing,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people been killed in jail for the past, since 2003.
Uh-huh.
The one we know of is about 10 people at least. And there's a lot of people still missing.
Mm-hmm.
So
and these two here that we're showing now, they're more victims of the prison regime. I mean, obviously, some of those images are shocking. Fahad, is this something new to you, or is this something that the Islamic Human Rights Commission has been aware of for some time?
It's not new. It's just it's just as shocking every time you see it. Especially when you see the way the pictures of the sister who they've basically beaten, who was just a mother of one of the detainees. We have one of the, actually Sheikh Abdul Salam, the founder of the Al-Ihsan party, his daughter, Nadia Yassin, she is currently basically being indicted for comments she made last year against the king, and she faces a lengthy sentence as well. And it just shows the fear that, I mean, she's highly respected among the Moroccan society, among the grassroots, and it just shows the fear that if she is to be in prison, what they will do to her. It seems that for people who are unknowns in society, they will actually take these measures against them. But for people who actively oppose the regime, you can just imagine what they would actually do to them.
You see, I have been to the Moroccan embassy before and put to them that there are prisoners being held in Morocco who are being tortured and abused, and they said that they held a full Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and which resulted in pardons and people being absolved or released. What is the reality of that?
I mean, the reality is in front of you. You can see the pictures. You can see the detainees are still being in there. They're being tortured. If they have released some, I don't know what, did they release the dead bodies? I wouldn't put it past them. They have tortured them to death. They have to release the bodies at the end.
What is the embassy? I mean, have you contacted the embassy or the government?
We actually put the
Moroccan government.
It's quite interesting because the other case that we were talking about, Farid Halali, basically, at the moment they're refusing to give him a Moroccan passport because if he has no papers, he has to go he can't go anywhere but to Spain if he's extradited. And they're saying he has to come to the consulate to sign for the actual passport, and obviously he's been detained. And they assured his lawyers on many occasions that if consulate can send a representative to the prison and witness a signature there, but now they're actually just putting up more and more obstacles, waiting for the case to be heard and him to be sent basically back to Spain. So we've put out an action alert to contact the Moroccan embassy, and after a few days we started getting people calling us saying they're bouncing the email. So I called them, the embassy, and they said, "Oh, our email's it's broken now." So I think there was, campaigners were active as usual and basically blocked up the email, and it's out of order. So we have written to them. They just basically stonewalled us. They don't reply. That's a problem with some of these.
I will contact the Moroccan embassy again and obviously give them the right of reply. We had a very similar hard-hitting programme about Tunisia, and apart from a complete denial that it's, well, I'll come on to the Tunisian denial because we're going into a break now. Please stay tuned.
The UK's most comprehensive Muslim business directory. Over 10,000 businesses and organisations reach over 500,000 Muslims. A print run of over 100,000. To advertise, contact our sales team today on 0870 6207 786 or visit www.muslimgreenpages.com. Muslim Green Pages. Go green.
Sensational cure for baldness and hair loss. With millions of users across the world, baldness could be a thing of the past. Ivermectin is a natural herbal product with no side effects, just amazing results. It's clinically tested and recognized by the World Health Organization. Hair starts growing back within a few months using the treatment. If you don't believe it, then try it yourself. The world-famous Ivermectin hair lotion. To order, simply call 020 7422 0005.
You can now enjoy the blessed view, the view of the Kaaba and Masjid al-Haram in Makkah al-Mukarramah, from the comfort and luxury of your own place, for as little as £8,000. To find out more about 5-star living in seasonal ownership apartments, or how to own a flat just a minute's walk from the masjid, call High Spec Living. But hurry, there's a limited supply of apartments and studios with the Kaaba view. High Spec Living, bringing you great properties from around the world.
Help the Palestinians sow the seeds of economic recovery. Support Interpal's Plant a Tree in Palestine campaign. Interpal, helping Palestinians in need.
मैं अपने बेटे की पिटाई कर देता हूँ।
मेरी बेटी की सहेली हमेशा गुमसुम रहती थी। बात में उसने बताया कि उसका अंकल उसे अब्यूज कर रहा है।
हमारे नेबर अपने छोटे छोटे बच्चों को घर में अकेला छोड़ जाते थे।
खुद पे कंट्रोल ही नहीं रहता, फिर गिल्टी फील करता हूँ।
बेचारी एकदम टूट चुकी थी, मुझसे बर्दाश्त नहीं हुआ।
कई बार दिन भर भूखे रहते थे बेचारे, मुझे ये सब बर्दाश्त नहीं हुआ।
इसीलिए हमने हेल्पलाइन को कॉल किया।
बच्चे हमारा फ्यूचर है। बच्चों की तरफ क्रूएल्टी को रोकने के लिए NSPCC एशियन चाइल्ड प्रोटेक्शन हेल्पलाइन को 0800-096-7719 पर कॉल कीजिए।
वाह, अंग्रेजी जबान सीख के सब कुछ आसान हो गया। अब तो मैं डॉक्टर से भी आसानी से गुफ्तगू कर सकती हूँ।
अब मैंने अंग्रेजी सीख ली है, इससे मुझे इंटरव्यूज के लिए और नौकरियों के लिए अप्लाई करने का हौसला मिलेगा।
मैंने लर्न डायरेक्ट वालों के साथ राब्ता कायम करके गुफ्तगू की, एक बहुत ही हेल्पफुल एडवाइजर के साथ उर्दू में।
लर्न डायरेक्ट, मैं आपकी क्या मदद कर सकती हूँ?
आप भी कर सकते हैं। राब्ता कायम कीजिए लर्न डायरेक्ट एडवाइस लाइन से। फोन करें 0800-093-1118 और उर्दू में गुफ्तगू करें।
Karwane Haram, a name to be trusted, brings you a package of 1 to 4 star hotels. Makkah Hotel, Makkah Tower, Hilton, a few steps from the Haram. In Medina, 1 to 4 star hotels. Daratul Asma, just a few steps from the Masjid al-Nabawi. Muallim Draft, Qurbani, medical and religious assistance. Accommodation packages for 2, 4 and 6 Hajis start from only £1,199. For more information, contact 0870-803-1738.
The Muslim Directory. We've been serving the community for over 10 years, helping Muslims in the UK to work together. It's over 700 pages thick and full of really useful information. And businesses? Well, we have hundreds. Everything from accountants to wedding services, just like these. But you know the really amazing thing? It's given out free. So why not join us? Advertise your business in our next edition. Where's your copy?
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to today's agenda with Yvonne Ridley. We're talking about prisoner abuse in Morocco, torture inside the jails there, as well as highlighting the plight of a Moroccan held in this country without trial, without charge. And we'll come back to Farhat Alali's case. But I was just explaining about how the Moroccan and governments in North Africa respond to criticism of human rights abuses, and I'd made reference to the fact that we'd highlighted this area in Tunisia, but the Tunisian embassy, when I contacted them, all they were willing to say was they issued a strong denial that Tunisia had become a destination for German paedophiles, an allegation that had been made wrongly, they say, in this studio a few weeks ago. But you actually found a comment from the Moroccan government about the accusations of torture and prisoner abuse.
Yeah, just briefly, by way of background, that the received wisdom was that during the 90s, prisoner abuse in Morocco had dropped considerably, which, perhaps it had, but certainly between the years of 2002 and 2004, it did increase dramatically again, and that drew the attention of a number of human rights organisations, and there were various reports released, which the Moroccan government was very unhappy about, precisely because it doesn't do very much for Morocco's public image to be fingered by human rights groups as a place that people are routinely abused and tortured in. So in early 2005, there was a delegation of representatives from human rights organisations who went to visit the Moroccan Justice Minister to ask him about these reports that had come out in 2004 detailing people who were held in Tamara. And the Justice Minister said, firstly, that he had sent people from the Ministry of Justice to Tamara to investigate whether anybody had been held extrajudicially there. And he said that they had not found anything untoward. And I just want to point out as well that it's actually completely illegal to hold anybody there at any time, because it's the headquarters of the Moroccan secret police and they're just not entitled to hold anyone. So according to the Moroccan Justice Minister, you weren't held in Tamara. But the other thing that he said, which was very interesting, was that he said that after the Casablanca bombing, the Moroccan government had to use every detention facility that they had, but that wasn't the case anymore, i.e. in 2005 it was no longer the case that they had to use every detention facility that they had, which could be interpreted as a sideways way of saying we did used to use Tamara as a place that people were to detain people, but now we certainly don't. So slightly ambiguous response.
If we can just go over to Hamid again. You tried to interrupt before when I was trying to come to the defence, or certainly give the Moroccan government side that they'd had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and there'd been an amnesty and people had been released from prison, and you were barracking there saying rubbish or words to that effect.
It's a complete lie, They set up this committee straight after the death of the last king, Hassan. They set up this Equity and Reconciliation Commission, and it's all fraud, These people, they've been just defending the socialists, the Marxists and the communists. They never defend any Muslim. And this commission is a fraud, headed by Ben Zakri. And they said that there was no facilities for holding these people. They empty the jails from normal criminals. They release about up to now, but in the days of the King Muhammad, they release about 45,000 criminals in order to get enough space for the Muslims. For the Muslims, they were planning before the 2003 to help them, and this reconciliation, they said we working up to 1999. So anything after that, they're not touching it. So they're not touching anything that happened in the days of this king. Now they're just because the other king is dead. Now they're trying to distance themselves from the previous regime, but it's still the same. even worse, because now you got more people that attacking Islam, and they're putting Muslim in jail for just wearing hijab or having a beard or praying Fajr in time or doing anything that the normal Muslim do. So, like we said, they orchestrate this bombing of Casablanca, and everybody knows that L'Anigri, who was in charge of the CID, and he's the one who done all these things, and now he been exposed himself as a drug dealer with his, all his people, they've been demoted because they've been found, guilty, but they don't want to show to the public, been trafficking in drugs and doing all the things that they said they're standing for.
Well, of course, I mean, we can't verify that at this stage. I'm not suggesting that you're twisting facts or misleading us, but
we've got evidence, sister.
Excellent. It's like a.
No, we've got evidence.
No, that's fine.
The chief director of the palace's security is one of the main dealers of drugs trafficking and cocaine and all sorts of.
Right.
The main supplier of drugs to Europe is Morocco.
Still, let's focus on the.
And who's doing it is the government. It's not the Muslim. They don't touch it.
But if we can just focus anyway back onto the prisoner abuse, Farhad, what can viewers do to help? And what is going on in North Africa? Because you have a band of countries there with shocking human rights records. If you read Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Cage Prisoners, Islamic Human Rights Commission, you've got a band of countries there, Tunisia, Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, and don't forget Libya, which we have actually neglected Libya on this programme, but maybe we can address that on a different show.
I mean, in terms of your second question, what's going on, it's not limited to North Africa. You go right across the Arab world, across the Muslim world, and then it's almost really, if you can find me a country in the world today that doesn't practice torture, I'd be very, very surprised. Whether it's the Western bloc or the old Soviet bloc or the Muslim world, torture is happening on a regular basis in every country. It seems that all these international instruments are, really just there as pieces of paper. Everyone's ignoring them. And when those countries which traditionally used to speak out about torture, when they are beginning to practice it now openly, such as the United States and Britain, when they openly are practicing it and saying it's justified for state security, it gives the green light to the other countries which say, well, that's our justification too. We have state security, we have national security. These Islamists, they're the cause of all this instability. So now that you understand how we feel, then we can all collaborate, and that's where rendition is coming in. Like in many cases, Clara's been pointing out, people are being brought to Morocco, being brought to the Emirates, being brought to Pakistan, and being renditioned there to be tortured, because it's just getting other people to do your dirty work for you, all serving the same purpose.
Clara, what was the most shocking thing that you found in your research?
About Morocco?
Yes.
I think for me, quite a lot of shocking things. One is the kind of torture that's used in Morocco. To read the descriptions is really harrowing. The second thing is the scale, and I suppose what's always very upsetting when one is researching this kind of thing is to realise that there are just so many people that it's impossible to take on all those cases.
When you're saying so many people, are we talking scores or hundreds or?
Well, for example, in the wake of the Casablanca bombings in 2003, human rights organisations estimated, which, I mean, it's probably something of a conservative estimate, that 5,000 people had been rounded up and held for at least a period of time and tortured before some of them were released and some of them were indicted, and perhaps some of them are still there. We've been getting some letters of people that are still in Moroccan prisons. We haven't got by any means all of the letters that exist, but there seems to be sort of two main patterns, and one is that people are arrested in Morocco and held without trial by the security services for usually a period of about 2 weeks, where they're tortured essentially until they agree to sign a confession. Then they're delivered to a police station, so often the Casablanca police station, where they do confess. Then they have something called a trial and end up in one of the main prisons in Morocco. But another quite disturbing, a very disturbing letter that we've read recently is from somebody in Kenitra who actually wasn't arrested in Morocco. He's a Moroccan citizen, it appears. He was actually arrested in Istanbul by the Turkish security services, he says. He was forced to confess to something, and then he was actually rendered to Morocco, where he was further detained. So that's a case of rendition that doesn't involve the United States. It involves, in fact, two countries that are aspiring members of the European Union.
These are also countries, of course, Abdul Latif, where Western holidaymakers go. I mean, it must, in your darkest days in prison, being tortured and abused, the irony must not have been lost on you that probably a few hundred yards or half a mile away there'd be some British tourists getting drunk as skunks and having a holiday.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest with you, I would like to make a few things. The bombing of Casablanca, 2003, it was orchestrated, and there is ample evidence that it was orchestrated by the secret services. I mean, this is one of the list of the people that have been released in one go. Some of them were charged, I mean, up to 30 years. This
well,
is
certainly, I think about 6,000 people were arrested
2005
as part of a sweep involving the Casablanca.
The Minister of
bombs.
Justice, he was always saying and claiming that all these people, they've been to trial and they've been tried legally and lawfully.
They tried them by groups, you know that.
And they were charged by groups.
All of these people were involved in the Casablanca bombings.
Yeah, this is one of the lists. They were all released in one day.
And
some of them, they were charged.
I mean, that's an awful lot of people. Our lines are red hot at the moment. What I propose to do now is to...
And this is the evidence that I said to you about. This is the head of the security of the palaces in Morocco. He is the one who's been alleged to have drug dealing and his colleagues. They are all heads of secret services.
Well, of course, these are allegations, and at the end of the day, we really are here to focus on the brutalities happening within.
The reason why we brought this incident is
I appreciate it.
that these people, they were in charge during the arrest of the brothers and the trials. They were in charge. Their boss was Hamidul Anigri.
And what's happened to them?
Now they are facing charges as well of dealing with the criminal.
Right. Okay.
There's one more thing. There is over 300 people still in custody without charge, and some of them been held for up to 1 year. And most of these people are, in Kenitra, Sela, and these are the worst places anybody can be in, as a detainee. Is the worst places.
And how long have they been held without charge?
Some of them been held nearly a year now. And every day they bring like 12, 13, and they give them a, you know, a new... They got this kind of ready-made accusation. Then they bring 10 or 12, and they said these people, they try to make, you know, do this or do that. And they just, you know, sentence them together in the same go, like 5 years each or 10 years each, like they said in some tomato or something.
Okay. Let's take our first caller now, because we've only got a few minutes left. So please do keep your points and questions very tight. To our first caller, Assalamu alaikum. Who do we have on the line?
Yes, hello. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shaukat from Manchester.
Yes, brother.
I'd like to say, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, there's 5 characteristics the unbelievers have better than you, and one of them is they never let their leaders abuse them, and we Muslims do. What we need is people power, like what happened in Romania, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and bring these thugs down. We are 1.3 billion Muslims. If we all rise up, it wouldn't even take hours to bring these thugs down. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, revolutionary talk there from Manchester. To our next caller, Assalamu alaikum. Who do we have on the line?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ali from Birmingham. I like to say why the torture is forbidden in UK here, and it's forbidden in United States as well, and why the third world state practicing torture there in proxy of United States and the UK. Torture forbidden here because the information which you can obtain by torture it's incredible, not credible. And the Holy Quran have revealed that since 14th century ago in Surah Al-Nahl. And anyone does not know that, he has to go to Surah Al-Nahl and understand torture does not bring credible information. This is false information to be obtained to deceive the country and deceive the prisoners. And maximum torture have been practiced in the time of the last prophet. He asked the prisoner to teach the children of the Sahaba the Arabic language, the basic of the language, and no one have took more than 6 months, and he had been released after he taught the children of the Sahaba. This is the maximum torture practice in the time of the Prophet, and in Salah ad-Din time, he said the price of the release for each one, 10, equivalent to 10 British pound. Could we get our Guantanamo prisoners for 1 British pound, 10 British pound? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Ali was asking there, why no torture in Britain and America? Why is it exported out or sent out, Farhad?
I disagree. It does happen in America. Within American prisons, this is one of the... We're talking now about, like, let's say the extradition treaty. In Babar Ahmed's case, they're guaranteeing he won't be sent to Guantanamo. But nowadays, the entire American prison system has become Guantanamo Bay for a Muslim detainee. And you just have to look at the case of Sheikh Umar Abdurrahman, another one of our prisoners of fate. He's blind, he's elderly, and he's been detained since '93, and he's been tortured, he's been raped regularly in his prison. He's excommunicado, isolated from everyone. And he's just one case. You just have to look at the prison.
This is the blind Sheikh. What actually, very briefly, is his medical condition? Because we were told that he was very close to death just a few months ago.
He is very ill, but I mean, there was rumours that he'd actually passed away, but we've been in touch with his lawyer, and they're unfounded. He is quite ill, though, and we are trying to revive the campaign for him as part of our Prisoners of Fate, because since 9/11, he's been one of the real forgotten prisoners and the forgotten detainees. Previously, he was one of the key symbols of the injustice that was happening, but now there's so many.
Right. And to our next caller, Assalamu alaikum. Who do we have on the line?
Walaikum salam, Yvonne. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Who's this?
Okay, this is Mohammed from Watford. Basically, all I want to know is, I'm a little lost at all this, is the fact that I knew about this in 1997 when I heard an interview somewhere by a chap called Hamza Yusuf, who explained that in Egypt, where the state religion is Islam, young Muslims are taken away when it's Fajr Namaz and put away in cells. But I can't understand what's the purpose in it all? I mean, it may sound a little silly at this point, but I can understand why Muslim countries whose state religion is Islam would torture their own brothers, brothers and sisters. No, that's it. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, walaikum salam. And first highlighted by Sheikh Hamza Yusuf. What is the sole aim, Fahad?
To preserve their own power. Most of these regimes are dictatorial. They're kings, they're monarchies, they're despots, and they fear that if the people go back to their deen, go back to Islam, and become more practicing, that they will be overthrown by a Muslim group, a Muslim party, whether through the political system, as the Ikhwan al-Muslimin try, or through revolution, as Shaukat advocated. That something, they do fear this, that the more religious the Muslims become, the more powerful, the more empowered they feel, and the less chance they have of retaining their seats.
Right. Hamid, is there anything you would like to add? We're coming to the end of this programme. Is there any plea that you'd like to make to agenda viewers, wherever they are?
Yeah.
You've got about 15 seconds.
Yeah, the last thing, there's lots of people involved in this thing in Morocco or anywhere else to do with, persecuting Muslim. It's not just in Morocco, in everywhere. That's everybody knows that, but there's no exception from right to left.
Ending on a very sad note, but if you want to help, get in touch with the Islamic Human Rights Commission. Assalamu alaikum.
The Prophet ﷺ said, "The one who was devoted to the Quran will be told